Hello there, and welcome to Great Neck Library's STEM Labs Digital Transmissions. I'm Chris Van Wickler, the Emerging Technologies Librarian here at Great Neck Library, and we are going to have a little fun today doing some three-dimensional design, or 3D design, that would work perfectly for 3D printing. Quick little piece of housekeeping before we get started. If you go to greatnecklibrary.org, you will get all of our up-to-date information with what's going on with the library. Today, we are going to use a free software. I'm going to open it up right here in the browser, so let's get started. It is called Tinkercad. Tinkercad is produced by Autodesk, which is the premier 3D design software used by many different job professions, including architects, engineers. They produce the software AutoCAD, which is one of the industry's standards. We're using Tinkercad, which is their lowest level, and it's totally free. I don't mean just Great Neck Library residents free, I mean it's free to everyone. So if you're watching this and you are in Illinois, you can create a Tinkercad account and be able to start 3D designing for free. So you'll be taken to tinkercad.com and you will go to that site and click on Join Now. Now, if you're under the age of, I believe, 14, they require you to create a new account. Your parent will also have to create an account as well. If you're over the age of 14, you should be, I believe, good to go. I don't think it's 18. I think it is 14 on Tinkercad. Once you create an account, you can go ahead and log in. Once you click on Sign In and you log in, it'll take you to a web page that'll look something like this. There is a lot more projects on my page than there will be on yours because, well, this is the library's account and we do a lot of cool designs. What we are going to be doing, and there's some little housekeepings, you can actually take lessons and learn different ways of making things from Tinkercad, but that's why I'm making this video, so feel free to just watch my stuff or you can continue on with what they're doing there too. You can click on Create a New Design. Now I just opened this one to show you guys, so I'm going to click on a previous design, but you guys definitely click on Create a New Design, and that will get you started. Once this loads up, your page will actually look like this. Now you won't have 3 chess pieces on there. They will, they'll not be there. So technically a line in your page will look exactly like this one right now. But there's a reason these guys are here. It is to show you what we are going to be working on. Now, we're not going to make all 3. Specifically, we are going to be making the Rook here. So let me zoom in on this guy really quickly. Explain to you how we do that in a second. But this is our goal for the day. Make something that looks very similar to this. You can use this for playing chess if you want, or come up with another thing. Maybe you make castles. Just have a little fun. Okay, so quick little housekeeping. How do you move around in Tinkercad? First of all, Tinkercad can be used on Macs. It can be used on Windows computers. It can be used on tablets, including iPads or Samsung tablets, cell phones. It is harder on a tablet, a cell phone, any of those mobile features. A lot harder, but if that's what you've got, work with it. You might have to figure things out or do a little Google search, figure out how to do something in there. If you are using a Windows computer, you have a left and a right side of the mouse. If you're using a Mac computer, I believe when I say right-click on something, you need to do command-click, I believe. Sorry, I'm a Windows user. It doesn't come off at the top of my head. Anyway, your mouse looks like this or something like this. Mine's nice and fancy. And you're used to the left side of your mouse. That's how you're going to be able to left click and drag an object in, or just click on something to select it. Most of us are not used to using the right side of the mouse, but in Tinkercad, the right side of your mouse adjusts your camera. So if we take the right side of our mouse and we make sure our cursor or our mouse is in the work plane section, and I right click and hold it down, I can move the whole screen around. Make ourselves nauseous, get ourselves sick a little bit. It's going to be a little fun. That's fine. You can move the whole thing around. If you want to zoom in and out, you can use that wheel in the center of the mouse. You can use the wheel to zoom in and out just like that, as long as your mouse is in the work plane. Allows you to zoom in and out. Now, if you don't like that, it's a little confusing. There is a box up here Especially if you're on a mobile device, you can use this box to move everything around. And there is a plus to zoom and a minus to zoom out. Okay. Now, these buttons are right here, zoom in, zoom out, and your box is right here. There's a little button that looks like a house. It says Home View. We will use that a few times, so your Home View is the first button right here, and you click on Home View. And that takes you home. Okay, now, your shapes are all on the right-hand side. These are your basic shapes. There are more complicated ones. We're not going to use them in this lesson, but you can use them if you'd like to for other projects. Now, under basic shapes, we have all of our shapes here, and we're going to start with our cylinder. Now, there are two cylinders. There is the gray one and the orange one. The gray one is a hole. It doesn't actually exist. It cuts a hole through something, kind of like drilling a hole. The orange one is your actual solid object. So we want the orange one. We're going to drag that in. Plop it in towards the center of the work plane. I try not to drop an object up in one of the corners. It's very hard to work with it there, so I just drop it in the center. Okay. As soon as you have that dropped in, you're going to notice that there are pickup points. There are 4 white pickup points here down at the bottom, 4 black ones down at the bottom, and then there's another one that's actually a height adjustment. It's a white pickup point, and the way I know it's the height adjustment is if I rotate my view with the right side of the mouse, you can see that it's at the top of the object. It's not down at the bottom with everything else. So try to find a view with the right side of your mouse that won't confuse you between the ones that are adjusting the length and the width, and the white box that is adjusting the height. At any point, feel perfectly comfortable pausing this video and rewinding. I am doing my best to try to explain every tiny little thing that I am doing throughout this process, just as I would in one of our lessons in our STEM lab. But it's the first time I'm recording a video this way, so hey, all things are new. So if you're not seeing these boxes, what happened was you clicked outside of the object, and what you have to do is just click on the cylinder that you dragged in again. Okay. First things first, let's make this smaller. If I was to click on one of these boxes, you can see these measurements here. Now, the measurements don't say what the dimensions are. It actually lists what dimension you're working in down at the bottom right, which is a millimeter. It says mm for millimeters. So I'm seeing this cylinder being 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters. And this is the point where you might start freaking out and saying, I don't know metric, Chris. I don't know it. I just know inches. You could change it by going to Edit Grid, but I recommend not doing that because you're going to be working with decimal points. Better to work in metric. It's kind of more of the industry standard, and there's very simple math. I'm going to tell it to you right now. For every 1 centimeter, there's 10 millimeters, which means, how big is this right here? Well, it says it's 20 millimeters by 20 millimeters. 20 divided by 10, because 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter, is 2. I have a 2 centimeter by 2 centimeter cylinder. That's the shape. That's the math. That's how it works. So we're going to stay here. What I want to do is make a 1.5 centimeter by 1.5 centimeter base for our rook, or our castle piece. And to do that, I'm going to show you 3 methods. Method number 1, this is the common one. You bring your mouse to the box and you rotate it, you move it around, and you can adjust the shape. Method number 2 is that you can hold the shift key on your keyboard. You can hold that down, and now it will shrink everything proportionally. Notice how your measurements are changing equally. I have 28 by 28. I have 17 by 17. I can adjust that. By holding the shift key, it keeps everything. Note that the top is adjusting, so if you do use that method, you'll have to go back and adjust the height. And the last method is my currently preferred method. I click on the white box. This can be a little hard if you don't have good mouse control, but you click on the white box and these 2 boxes show up. You can now click on them and then use your keyboard to type in the numbers. So I want this to be 1.5 centimeters, which is 1.5. 1.5 times 10 is going to be 15 millimeters. So we're going to type 1.5 in this one. I'm going to come over to the other one that says 24 right now. Yours probably says 20. I'm going to type in 15, hit enter, boom. We've got our cylinder smaller. We've got it 15 by 15. Next is to adjust the height. My recommendation is to rotate your view to the side so you're looking down at the object. And we're going to go to where the height adjustment is. It's the high white one right here. And don't hold shift. Do not hold shift. I'm just going to drag this down. And I'm going to drag it down to 3. You could click in this box and type in 3, and that works also. You can't hold shift because it would change the measurements that you just did. It would change the length and the width. We want it to be a cylinder that has the dimensions of 15 by 15 with a height of 3. So, next up, we are actually going to smooth this out. What I want to show you, that's why I'm zooming in, you don't have to zoom in this much, but I want to show you is that this cylinder is not perfectly round. There are facets. It's building a cylinder by basically taking edges and sticking them together, and that's going to build a roundish shape. But there's not enough of them to make it really smooth. So if you have your shape selected, and if not, you just click on it, you get the shape selected, you'll notice this box appears in the top right-hand corner. There are 3 options here. The option I'm most concerned about is sides. The more sides there are, the smoother this will be. The less sides there are, the less smooth it will be. So I'm going to take this bar, I'm going to left click and drag it and bring it all the way to the right, and that gives me 64 sides. Okay, 64 sides is as smooth as humanly possible in Tinkercad. So we're going to use 64 sides. Okay, so we made our base, looking pretty good. Again, I'm always rotating my view to look at different sides, different shapes of this, because we're working in 3 dimensions. If I look one way, it might look great from one way, and then the 2 pieces from a different direction could be nowhere near each other. Okay, so next up is we need to work on the cone shapes. These are actual just cones. They're making an hourglass shape, but it's actually 2 cones that are stacked on top of each other, and one of them is just flipped over. Very simple. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, everybody can do it nice and easy. Few ways to do this, but the method I'm going to show you for this part is the following. Just left click and drag your cone in. Get it dropped in nearby as close as humanly possible. Get it dropped in there. While we're here, you see your shapes over here. What we can do is we can go to our shape box. We can go to sides, and we can just drop that all the way up to the right at 64. Again, making this as smooth as possible. Now we deal with the size. How big is our cylinder? Well, if I come over here and I left click at one of the points, I'll notice that it's 20 by 20. Looking at the original idea, I want it to sit directly on top. So, it shouldn't be bigger than the base. How big is the base? Well, I'm going to click on this, and I made it 15 by 15. I'm clicking on it, clicking on the white box. 15 by 15. Come back to my cone. Left click on the box, and I am going to do my preferred method here of just left clicking on the box and then going over here and typing in 15. I'm going to hit the tab key. What the tab key does is it moves me down to the length from the width, and I can hit 15. It's a little faster than clicking on each box. Personal choice. You can click on each box. That's perfectly all right. Do what works best for you. Okay, next step. I want my cylinder to be on top of, I want my cone to be on top of my cylinder. So there's a few ways to do this, but my preferred method is to rotate my view, and you can just rotate it directly to the side. I don't want these guys to be in the background of our camera shot, so I'm just rotating it here. But you can just rotate it to the side so you see this. Okay. Next I'm going to click on the box where it says, you'll probably see front, but I see left. So I'm going to left click on the words. That's the important part. Make sure it's not top or bottom, then you're looking at this row. Okay. So we change the view here. And I'm teaching more or less like the correct way to do it. If you're you kind of know where I'm going. You don't have to take the extra time that I'm doing right now. Okay? If you don't know, follow along directly. So next up is we have right where there's the home button, there's all these other buttons down here on the left side, and one of them is this box shape. If you hover over, it tells you that it says switch to flat view or orthographic view. We're going to click on that, and what that does is it removes perspective. And if you're not sure what perspective is, it's the following. In art, when you're drawing something on a flat piece of paper, you can't tell distance. The only way to tell distance is that something closer to you appears larger than something further away. Tinkercad does the same thing. Allow me to demonstrate. So I'm going to put my camera view nice and big here. So just looking at me for a second. Hi, everybody. If I put my hand close to the camera, my hand is huge. It actually appears bigger than my face. Even if I held it off to the side here, it appears that it's a larger thing, like my hand could eat my face. But if I move my hand back, even it gets smaller and smaller. And if I actually put my hand back here, it's really tiny. So it's how close something is to the camera. Switching to orthographic view removes distance from the equation. It flattens it all out so it's two-dimensional. It's really useful when you're adjusting the height of an object when you want two objects to sit on each other. So this is the way that we do this. We go over to our cone. Make sure your purple cone is selected. If not, left click on it. And you'll see a black cone. Now there is a chance your black cone might show up at the bottom or the top. Just find it. It doesn't matter where it is. Just find it. Grab your black cone, left click and grab it. And we're going to pull up on it until it sits on top of our cylinder, just like this. Notice that it says a height of 3. So this is what I was saying before. If you knew where I was going, you could easily just drag this up to a height of 3. I just like showing off the orthographic view because as you get more complicated, you can do more cool things. Okay, so that's it. I didn't move the object. I didn't drag it around. My object is still more or less right where I left it. Though, fun fact, from this view, it looks like the object's mostly sitting on here. And from this view, you can tell there's a difference. They're too far apart from each other. That's okay. We're going to fix that in a couple seconds. Okay, so I'm going to stay back in that side view. I recommend that you do the same. Come on. Okay. Perfect. Exactly like that. Just the way we want. Okay, so we have the cylinder selected. If we look over here at my original, I really have two cylinders stacked on top of each other, and one of them is just flipped upside down. That's what we're going to do. Go up just above the box with the directionals. You'll see the trash can, which is your delete button. Do not delete this, we want this. But just to the left of the delete button is the duplicate feature. And actually, I should pause here. I don't remember if I mentioned. Just to the right of the delete button is the undo button. You can also use Control-C, but it's the Control-Z, sorry. It's the undo button, which allows you to just go backwards. So, trash can, to the right, undo. To the left of the trash can is duplicate. Duplicate actually has a really complicated feature, but we're going to use it very basically at the current moment. We're just going to click on it once. Here's what's going to happen. When you click on it once, your screen might flicker for a second and look like nothing happened, because your two objects are taking up the same exact space in the software. You've made a copy, it's just in the same spot. So, I'm going to click duplicate now. Screen flashes. Perfect. What I do now is I have this upside down frowny face almost. I think of it as like a smiley face, but it's upside down, so it's a frowny face right now. This rotates your object. You can actually rotate in all 3 dimensions, so if you're seeing more than one of them, make sure you are choosing the one that will allow you to just rotate the shape over this direction. But there are 3 of them, and if your view is not the same as mine right now, you might see more than one. Okay? So I'm going to go over to my frowny face. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to bring my mouse immediately towards the center of the object, or at least close to it. And you kind of just saw the object start to move. The reason I do this is because it locks in at every 22.5 degrees. If I have my mouse out of this circle, I'm moving 1 degree at a time. It's a lot better to just lock in at every 22.5 degrees. You might say, that's a really weird number, Chris, and I'm going to say, no, it's not. Because 22.5 degrees times 2 is 45 degrees. Very common measurement, because 45 degrees times 2 is 90 degrees. And 90 degrees times 2 is 180 degrees, which means that it's flipping completely over. Okay? Learn some math here. And that's what I want. I want you to flip it over to 180 degrees. Okay, if it says a negative 180 degrees, that's okay too. It should just, as long as you're getting 180 degrees, you're good. Okay, so we flipped it over. We look like this. And that's really good. My Rook, though, I like the top of the Rook to be a little smaller at the top than it is at the base. There's something artistic that looks nicer to it to me. So I recommend you guys doing the same thing. But if you like the nice, big, perfect, this is the hourglass shape, it looks like a bow tie almost, leave it. Just remember that your measurements will be different going forward. Okay, but if you're following me along, we're going to adjust this. So we've made this hourglass, and I've just rotated my view. In fact, I'm going to come over to where that house button is. I'm actually going to click on the home view. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom button. It says now instead of switch to orthographic view, it says to switch to perspective view. I'm going to go back to that. You don't have to, but it's easier to see things this way going forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on, I'm going to just deselect for a second. Click on the top portion of your hourglass. Remember, they're two separate shapes still. So we still have them separated. We want the top one, not the bottom one. The part that's going to confuse everyone is that the top one, you're adjusting the top, but the pickup points are at the bottom of it. So it actually looks like you're going to be adjusting the bottom, but you're actually adjusting the top. So be aware of that. Now I'm going to zoom into our top cone, and I'm going to do that in the following method. I can actually focus my camera in to that one object by hitting the F key, F as in focus, and that zooms me in directly to that object, and it's perfect. And you'll notice that it stayed 15 by 15. If I hover my mouse over the pickup point, I have 15 by 15. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to change the top measurement, not to 15 by 15, but I think we want 13 by 13. And I can now rotate my view and say, yeah, that looks a little nicer. Kind of a little hard to tell because it's a little off-center, but that looks nicer. Okay, so 13 by 13 for the length and the width. The height you can leave the same. Okay. Rotate your view to look like you are a bird. Yes, here's my little wings. I am a bird floating in air. It's a top view. You're looking down at the object. Okay. Deselect it by clicking somewhere else on the work plane. Okay, anywhere without anything, just the blank spot. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to left click and drag a box around. You see my red box? I'm left clicking and dragging to surround the three shapes that we've brought in. I let go, and the box that appears here on the left says shapes 3. Yay! If you have 4, it means you probably hit duplicate too many times. 5 or 6 probably duplicate. If you have other objects on this work plane because you were experimenting, going a little rogue, you were getting bored listening to me, just make sure you only have these 3 objects selected. You don't want the other ones in there. Okay. We're going to bring our mouse up to this top bar, the same bar that the delete button's on, just the opposite side. So you go over to the right. And in the right, there is a button that has a line and 2 boxes coming off of it. If you hover over it, the software will tell you that that is the align tool. That's going to line everything up. Remember, I told you not to freak out, that these are all over the place. The computer is going to fix it. So we're going to click on align. Now, we get a lot of circles. Okay. If you've used a document writing software like Word or Google Docs, you're familiar with being able to put your text on the left, the center, or the right of the screen, or the page rather. We can do the same thing in Tinkercad. except Tinkercad is three-dimensional software. 3 different dimensions, which means I can align on the left, the right, or the center of the length, the width, and the height. 3 different ways. That can be confusing because there is going to be 9 options for us there. Okay. If you are looking down at this like a bird, yeah, like the bird, you're going to see only 6 options. That's a lot better than seeing 9. When you are looking down, we're going to choose the center. Now you might see a line down here. A line here and a line through here because you want to follow those down and you want to choose the center one. The important part is you're not choosing the right one, you're not choosing the left one, you're choosing the one in the center. Now here, you don't want to choose the top one or the bottom one, you want to choose the one in the center. And you'll notice that the shapes will turn gray. I'll try to rotate my view so you can see them a little better. There we go. Okay. You notice that you have 2 gray ones in the center. That's what you want. Now once you've selected that, as long as you still have shapes 3 showing up there, we want to join all 3 of these objects into one. It's called group. So again, the same bar that the delete button's on, but just on the other side near the align button, there is a button that looks like a box with a circle fused to it. If you hover over it, it says group. Go ahead and click group now. We're going to take all 3 objects and turn them into one. The color usually changes, and that's okay. In fact, if the color changed and you're like, oh, it's disgusting now, it's that orange color, maybe you have a thing against orange, what you can do is you can go over to where it says solid in the shape. You can click on it and choose your favorite color shape. I'm going to go with, I don't know, my favorite color is green. So we're going to go with green. Yay! It doesn't matter. The 3D printer will not pick this up. It's just for your happiness and joy. You can see how I did some like multicolored ones here. And if you're curious about that, when you clicked on solid and it gave you the color options, there's the option for multicolor. And if you click that, it brings back the colors everything was to begin with. But I don't want that right now. So just click on it, keep it all green. Okay, so we have our shape here. Yay, everybody's happy. Before we moved in a cylinder, we got it to adjust. There's actually an easier way. I made you do a little work there. The easier way, the one I'm going to teach you now, and again I'm going to click on my my Rook here. I'm going to click focus, the F button, to focus in on this shape, and I'm going to zoom back out a little. The button that we're going to use now, or the option tool we're going to use, is one called Work Plane. It's over by where your shapes are on the right hand side of your screen. It's just above the basic shape option, and it says Work Plane. I can left click and drag this, and I can plop it anywhere. But I want to plop it on the top of my cylinder. It'll turn orange when it's on an actual object, and when I let go, I get an orange Work Plane. This is not the base of the actual object. The actual object is still the base where it just was, but now every new object I bring in is going to stick to the base, stick to that Work Plane. So it's going to make the height very easy to adjust here. Okay, so to do this, we need another cylinder. If you look at our Rook over here from before, we have basically a cylinder on the top. Now I'm going to use a cutout method, teach you a cutout method, like a cookie cutter almost, to make this shape up on the top for all the turrets of our castle. So we need to make our cylinder a little tall. Okay, so we're going to grab our orange cylinder here. We're going to drag it in. We're going to plop it down on top of our Rook. We're going to bring our mouse to this box shape on the right hand side. We're going to go to the sides, and remember we brought the sides all the way up to 64 to make it as smooth as humanly possible. Okay, once it's as smooth as possible in Tinkercad, we're going to come over to our shape, get one of the pickup points. Okay, and we need to adjust the size to the thickness of the top. Remember the bottom was 1.5 centimeters or 15 millimeters. But the top we changed to 13 millimeters. So we're going to do that here. Instead of 20, we're going to type in 13. Or move it down to 13. I'm going to do the same thing. 13 here also. And that's got a nice size, 13 by 13. Okay. rotating my view a little with the right side of the mouse, and we're going to go to the height. Now the height, I'm going to left click and drag, and I kind of do this by sight, but 7 worked really well. So 7 millimeters tall. So it's 13 by 13 by 7 for our new cylinder. Okay. Good. So we got our top, and again, it's not centered. You could use the align tool here if it's driving you nuts. You can also use the arrow keys to move it if you just want to get it close. We're going to use the align tool at the end, so don't freak out about it. It's okay. It's okay for everything not to be perfectly centered. It feels weird, but trust me, it's all good. So we have our cylinder right here. We're going to click the duplicate tool again. Okay, we have our cylinder selected, we click duplicate, the screen flashes, yay, we've made a copy, and we are going to left click and drag this just to the right, a little bit more than that, get it a little bit out of the way. Then I'm going to hit F to focus in on the object, and then I'm going to use the scroll wheel or the minus sign over here to zoom out a bit. Okay. We're going to cut out the center of the turret, so it needs to be smaller. And the size that we want this to be is actually going to be 11. So again, I'm clicking on the pickup point. I'm clicking in the box where it says 13. I'm changing it to 11 on both dimensions. Okay, so we should have 11 by 11. Height doesn't matter. That's okay. We're going to change it to a hole now. Okay, so we're going to click on hole. And that's the option here, right next to solid, it says hole. It's really hard to tell. There's a blue circle around what the object is. So that's the solid, blue circle around it, and here's the hole. Okay, that's how you can kind of tell. It's a little confusing. Okay, good. We made a hole that's smaller than the center. We're doing good. Next up, we want to bring in the box, but I don't want the red box. I want the gray box, the one that is a hole. We're going to bring that in. I'm going to go down to a bird view, top view right here, maybe zoom out a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I can use the white boxes here. You can also use the black one if you want here, but we're going to use the white. And what we're going to do is we're going to make its length and width here. And if this is confusing you, use the right black one. But we're going to make the width of the object. I'm going to do 1.5, okay? 1.5 millimeters. It's very small, okay? I then need to adjust how long it is. 20 is okay, but you know what? 40 is going to be a lot nicer. And we're going to get a wall like this. So we're going to have 20 by 40. I'm sorry, we're going to have 1.5 by 40. Okay. So from here, what we're going to do is deselect both of them. We're going to we're going to left click and drag a box around the 2 holes. Do not cover the rook, the orange and green or whatever color your rook is. Don't cover it. Keep it over the 2 gray objects, just the holes. And you don't have to be over everything, just a portion of them is fine. But just make sure you're selecting just the 2 of them. You should see shapes too. Okay. Go up to the top right hand corner to our align tool. Again, it's the line with the 2 boxes coming over. Click on align, and if you're like a bird in the sky looking down at this, we're going to choose our 2 center lines. They're the ones forming the cross here. So we're going to choose the center circle here. It turns gray. Choose the center circle here. It also turns gray. Good. Left click outside of them. Click anywhere else, not on any of the shapes, but anywhere else to deselect both objects. Okay. Next up, click on your box, the rectangle at this point. It's not really a box anymore, it's a rectangle. 1.5 by 40 millimeters. Okay? Click on that one. Then go up to the left bar, just to the left of the trash can, and we're going to find the duplicate button. Now, don't click on it yet. Very important. Listen to me if you've never used it before. Do not click on duplicate yet. We've used the duplicate tool to make a copy. That's actually not what the tool is for. That's why they have copy and paste over here also. The duplicate feature duplicates the object in the exact same space. and then any action you do to it, it will duplicate also. That can be kind of confusing. What that means is if I click on it right now, I click duplicate, and I rotate my wheel or move it a little bit, and then I hit duplicate again, the next piece is going to do the same exact thing. Maybe watch me first. Maybe watch me a few times if you need to, and then do it. The important part when you're doing this is not to click outside of the shape. To always keep the shape or the duplicated shape selected. Okay? So watch. I have the shape selected. In fact, I'll deselect it. I'll click on the shape I want. Just the box, the rectangle. Bring my mouse up to duplicate. Click on it. I'm going to go down to the frowny face or smiley face. Yours might be up here at the top. Mine's down at the bottom because of my view. Okay? Yours might be at the top. It could also be here on the left or the right, but probably at the top or the bottom. Okay? I'm going to click on it. I'm going to bring my mouse towards the center here. And I'm going to move it over to just 22. I always have a hard time deciding what I want. Made it a little bigger. Yeah, I'm going to move it to... Let's do 45. It'll be a little bigger. It's fine. 45. You might do 22.5. That's okay. Note that I haven't deselected that shape at all. I now bring my mouse back to duplicate. You can also use the computer shortcuts Control D at the same time, but the button works just as well. Okay? So left click on the button. Boom. Watch how it moved. It moved 45 degrees. I'm going to click it again. Boom. It moved there again. If I don't have to click it one more time, if I did, I'd get another one going vertically. So best not to. But we get kind of this like spokey wheelie look. So take a second. If you need to watch that again, watch it again. But duplicate to make those. You don't have to make them one at a time. You can just use the duplicate function. Okay? Okay, so hopefully you've gotten the duplication down. Next up is we're going to left click and drag a selector box around everything that you have just created. All the holes, that is. Don't drag it around the rook. We don't want that, just the holes. Okay? You're going to see, if you're using the 45 degrees like I am, you're going to see shapes 5. If you're using a different number, like 22.5, you might see more. I think it ends up being like 9 or something like that. Okay? So you have your spokey wheel, and we're going to group it. So bring your mouse up to the box that is fused with a circle. Left click on it. It groups those 5 objects into one. Perfect. You're going to have something that looks like this. Okay. Next up, I'm going to rotate my view over here. And I could switch to orthographic if you want to. You know what? Why not? Let's go to orthographic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this up with the black cone. I'm going to go to the black cone of my hole, my wagon wheel hole. And we're going to start to drag the black cone up. And I'm looking at that dotted line that is right here to see what the height would be the best at. And my thought is, I think 4 millimeters up from the work plane is the best height. Okay? So you might want to copy that. It's 4 millimeters off from the work plane. And then I'm rotating my view to look back down at it like I'm a bird. I don't know. I like the bird look, okay? It's just a good look. Okay. I'm going to left click to deselect that. And what we're going to do now is left click and drag to select everything. This time select the rook and the wagon wheel shape. Okay? Select everything. Everything you worked on. Should see, if you've done this correctly, you should see shapes 3 appear right here in your work plan. Okay? We're going to go up to the, I'm going to call it like the taskbar almost, up in the top right-hand corner. There's a line, or the align tool. It has the line with the 2 boxes coming over it. We're going to left-click on it, and you're going to get the circle shapes. We're going to, again, choose the center circle. So it's this one, and this one right here. Click on them. They turn gray. Now bring your mouse nice and slow over to the box that's fused with a circle, the group button. Click on the group button. Boom. Cuts the holes. while you're in this view, why not? I know you're excited to go look at the Rook, but let's put our work plane back where it's supposed to be. So let's go up to our work plane tool just above basic shapes, left click and drag that, and drop it anywhere that it's showing up blue. So not on one of the objects, but anywhere else. Drop it down just like that, and now we can use the right side of our mouse to rotate, and just like that, you've got a Rook. Pretty cool, right? That concludes my video here. I hope you had a lot of fun. Play around with Tinkercad. Try to find something cool to design. If you have any questions about anything, you can email us at the library. And I hope you have a great day. Stay healthy, stay safe, and enjoy.